This is Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf He. And today's Shir and all the Shirim for the month of Elul has been generously sponsored as an incredible Schos Aliyas Neshama for Asarizel Basar, a Meir B'Siyata D'Shemayo. The learning of the entire Chabura as we embark in this incredible and holy month of Elul should bring Asarizel Basar Meir to an higher place in Ganilin Shalmeila and to be a Militz Yosher for our entire family. We're holding on the bottom of Dalit Amid Beis, approximately 13 lines from the bottom. The two dots, first word on the line is Uba'ala. We continue discussing the different methodologies of accepting Kiddushin. The Mishnah most notably began Oisha Niknes Bishloisha Derachim, Kesef, Shtar, and Bia. And so far we've discussed Kesef, yesterday we discussed Shtar, and now we move on to the discussion regarding being kaina, acquiring a woman, performing Kiddushin, again, which is Erisin, which is the first step of the marriage process, via Bia. Says the Gemara, Uba'ala, the Pasuk says, and he sleeps with her. Melamed, from here we learn, Sheniknes be Bia, that one can be kaina his wife through an act of intercourse. Asks the Gemara, why do you need a Pasuk? Validinu, I'll tell you a Kal V'chaimer. Uma yevama she'ein niknis b'kesef. A yevama, someone's husband dies without any, they don't have children. Should she marry the husband's brother? The halacha is there's no kinyan b'kesef, and yet niknis b'biyah. The yevama could be kind of with biyah. Zu, a regular case of marriage that we've already learned she'niknis b'kesef. Einoi din she'niknis b'biyah. Certainly biyah should work. So why would we need a pasuk? Answers the Gemara, no. The Kal V'chaimer is not absolute. Why? Because Amma Avriya Teichiak, the case of a Jewish maidservant, teaches us otherwise. Why? Because in Amma Avriya sheniknes b'kesef, and yet v'niknes b'biyah. Even though the Amma Avriya is indeed kaina with money, yet there's no din that you can be kaina the Amma Avriya with biyah. So therefore, not necessarily is any entity that could be kind of with kesef be kind of with biyah. Says the Gemara, no. Maybe Amar Avriya is the odd man out. Malam Avriya she'ein kinyan l'sham ishus. What's your ayah from Amar Avriya? You know why you can't be kind of Amar Avriya through an act of marital intimacy? Because it's not ishus, it's not marriage. Taimar bezu, but in our case, she'kinyan l'sham ishus, in which it is a form of marriage. So therefore, Ubala. So now the Gemara asks, this is similar to the setup like we had yesterday. I don't understand. Based on everything we just said, why Tamalaymer Ubala? Valamali Kara, Ha'asyala. Seemingly we should have a good Kal V'chaimer from Yavama. You can ask Rama Ivriya. There's no Kasha. So why do we need the pasuk of Ubala? Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi explains Rav Ashi. On the last narrow line of the Dalit Amid Beis, because you could ask Meikara Dedina Pircha. From the root itself, we have a kasha. Mecha Kamaisis law. What is your source? Where does the Kal V'chaimer build from? Meyavama, but I'll ask you a kasha. A kasha Shekein Zikuka ve'oimedes. Yavama, there's a din of zika. There's a din at the moment the husband dies, there's some level of connection between the wife and the husband's brother. So maybe that's why Tashmish works. Taimer Bezu in a regular case of Kiddushin, Zuka Ve'almedes. Therefore, Tamalaymer Ubala, that is the reason why you need a pasuk. So now we've learned the three ways to be kaina and isha, Kesef, Shtar, and Bia. And today we learned that Bia, where did we learn out from Ubala? We're not able to learn it out from a case of Yavama. Why? Even though Yavama does not work with Kesef and yet does work with Tashmish, the reason being because the Yavama is Zikuka ve'oimedes, and therefore you cannot necessarily learn from Yavama. And we pick it up on top of Hey Amid Aleph. Says the Gemara, so now we have to learn Shtar. Excuse me, I started off today and I said we learned Kesef, Shtar, and Bia. We learned Kesef, and then today we learned Bia. Now the Gemara, a little bit out of order, asks about Shtar. Now, just interesting to note, the top Taisus speaks out the kasha that maybe one would wonder, why don't we have the same Kal V'chaimer like we just had from Amma Avriya, And Tosfos says, because Amavri itself is learned from elsewhere. Okay, Tosfos deals with that kasha. Ask the Gemara, how do we know with shtar? Say, explains the Gemara, V'edinu. It's a kal v'chomer. Uma kesef. When it comes to money, she'ein ma'itzi, you're not able to divorce a woman by paying her. And yet, machnes, we learned that you could marry a woman through kesef shtar. She'ma'itzi, you divorce a woman with a shtar. Ein oidin she'machnes. Certainly, you should be able to marry her through a shtar. Says the Gemara, no raya. Why not? Malik kesef, when it comes to kesef, shekein boidim boi, because kesef is used to redeem hektish u'maiser sheni. So there's an advantage to kesef. So maybe that's why kesef allows itself to be used in Kiddushin. Timer b'shtar, when it comes to a document, shein boidim behektish u'maiser sheni. Tersev, how do we know you cannot redeem hektish u'maiser sheni with the shtar? The pasuk teaches us 5 lines down, He'am and Aleph and Nosan HaKesef v'kam loy. So he only is a din in kesef. So how do we know that you can marry a woman with a shtar? Omar Cross, you know where we know it from? V'yatza v'haisa. The pasuk teaches us in Devarim, v'yatza mibeisai, she leaves his house, v'alcha v'haisa l'shacher, and she goes and marries someone else. So we see that the pasuk puts together the yitziyah, the Kiddushin, the divorce, the previous misechta, with Vahaisa, with the marriage. And from here we learn out, explains the Gemara, Makish Havaya Liyitziyah. The Havaya, the act of taking, the act of acquisition, the Kiddushin, is equated and compared excuse me, is equated and compared to the Yitziyah, to the divorce. And therefore we learn out, Ma Yitziyah, just like the divorce is b'shtar, af havaya nami b'shtar, so too the marriage is with a shtar. Ask the Gemara, wait, if we find that you could equate the divorce and the marriage, let's do it the other way. Vakish nami yitziyah lavaya. So why don't we learn out divorce from marriage? In what? Ma havaya b'kesef. So we should learn out af yitziyah b'kesef. You should be able to divorce a woman with money, which you know is not true. Amar Abaye, explains Abaye, no. Yoimru kesef machnes kesef maitzi. You think that the same way you can get married with money, you should be able to get married with, you should be able to get divorced with money. Sanegar, the defender, that which acts as the Kiddushin, Yases Kategar, should become the accuser. The same entity can be used as both. And the obvious kash with Abaye, the Gemara is going to articulate immediately. But a second ago, you just said we learn out shtar that way. As the Gemara now asks, Yachi shtar nami, the same thing by shtar. Yoimru, should you say, shtar moitzi, a shtar, divorce, shtar machlis, a shtar should be able to effect a Kiddushin. Kategar Yases Sanegar, the prosecutor should become the defendant. Answers the Gemara. 13 lines down, first one line is Mili. Explains the Gemara, Mili the high shtar lechod, the high umili the high shtar lechod. Explains the Gemara, the shtar acting as a form of gerushin and as a form of kiddushin is not a problem. Why? Because they're different shtaros. The mili, the words in the document are different. Says Gemara, wait. Hachanami, why can't I say I kas v'lechod, v'kas v'lechod? Why can't I say the same thing, that the money is different? Explains the Gemara, because it's not true. Because tiba mi'achadu, because it is the same coin. So at the end of the day, we conclude part A of shtar by learning how do you know you get married with a shtar? Because you get divorced with a shtar. Yatza v'haisa. So why don't we say the same? You can get married with money, you should be able to get divorced with money. The basic answer is Ein kateger nasa saneger. The same kasha by shtar. There's a fundamental difference between shtar and kesef. Kesef is all the same entity. Shtar is different words inside the document. That is how Abaye explains. Rav Amar, a second teretz. Amar Kra, it says in the pasuk, the kasav law you should write for her with regard to gerushin. Beksiva mitzgareshes. And from here we learn out a limiting form that you only divorce with ksiva, whereas ve'inoi miskareshes, and you're not divorced with big kesef, and that's what we know. Even though there's v'yatzav ha'isa, that's you know you cannot get divorced with money. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Why don't we learn it the other way? Why don't we say that you only can be divorced with money, with iksiva, with a shtar, with a get? Veino mitkadeshes b'ksiva. So why don't we learn out that it's specific to Gerushin and not Kiddushin? Answers the Gemara because of Yatzav Isa. Because we have the fact that the Torah puts Kiddushin together with Gerushin. Makish Havayli Yitziyah. Says the Gemara Marois. So the Kasha Marois is a very important Kasha. Well, Marois is we just have two conflicting points. On one hand, we have a drasha says Rava Vikasavla, limiting that way that Kiddushin is done is not the same way that Kiddushin is done. On the other hand, we have Yatzav Isa, equating Gerushin and Kiddushin. So ask the Gemara, okay, Tachlis, Marois, how do you know which way to go? Explains the Gemara, Mistavra, it is logical. Koi begerushin mimayir gerushin. Koi begerushin mimayir kedushin? Of course not. And therefore, when it says v'kosav law, it's excluding a case of gerushin, which means what? That you cannot divorce with kasef. But the fact that it says v'kosav law will not come to teach us a din about Kiddushin. Teretz number 2 of Rava. So we have two terutim of Rava and Abaya. Why one cannot be divorced with kasef, even though it says v'yatzav ha'isa, even though seemingly we should equate the two, and just like you can get divorced with a shtar, you get married with a shtar, so you should be able to say just like you get married because you get divorced with kasef. Two terutim of Abaya and Rava. Why that is not true. Continues the Gemara, the Rav Yossi Aglili. But what are you going to say according to Rav Yossi Aglili? Da'apik leila haikra l'drasha achrina. As we're going to see in a moment, Rav Yossi Aglili learns this pasuk for a different reason. Sheina miskadeshes, excuse me, bekasav min ale. According to Rav Yossi Aglili, the pasuk of Yatzav Isa, the pasuk of Akasav law is needed for elsewhere. So according to Rav Yossi Aglili, how do you know you cannot be divorced with money? Answers the Gemara, Min Ali Amar Kra, says the Torah, Sefer Krisos. And hopefully you sound familiar. We've had this very technically many times, all the way back in Sukkah as well. We learn out from here, Sefer Karsa, Vein Davar Acher Karsa, only a document could sever and nothing else. V'Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan, who don't need it, Shashai Krisos, my of delay. What do they do with the pasuk? The Davar Acher is Veinoy Lebeina. The Rabbanan learn out that Sefer Karsa that has to be a Krisos, has to be a severance, has to be fully severing and detaching husband from wife. What does that mean? Explains the Gemara Kede Tanya, as we learned in a Bryce, about 13 lines on the white lines. First one line is Hare. And if someone says to his wife, you're to get on Kiddush, you don't drink wine. You don't go to your father's house. If the condition is forever, then ein zeh krisos. There's no severance because there's always some form of string attached. Therefore, that is not a good get. Whereas if he says kol shleishim yoim, then I raise that krisos. The Rabbanan learned this out from Sefer Karsa. That has to be a full severance, and you can't hold a string attached to the ex-wife. Rav Yossi Aglili, what does he say? Mikari's krisos ka nafkalei. Learns it out from the double Lashon. Rabbanan karis krisos loy mashmalahu chadim loy mashmalahu. And that's the end of the Machlekes Yossi Aglili and the Rabbanan. So after doing all the math, asks the Gemara that the bottom line is we have three ways that a woman could be mitkadeshes: kesef, shtar, and bia. And we've now explained three different sources. Asks the Gemara, 5 lines from the wide lines, Hey Amid Aleph. Chada mi chada lo yasya. Okay, so I understand that one from one, you cannot learn. Can't learn kesef from shtar, shtar from bia, bia from kesef, etc. But ask the Gemara, once we have two sources, teisi chada mitarti. Once I know that, for example, kesef and shtar, we should learn out bia from there, or something like that. Says the Gemara, okay, let's play this out. Hey teisi, which one do you want to learn out? Loi lech l'rachmana b'shtar, the Torah should never in shtar. V'teisi mehanoch, and learn it out from kesef and bia. Again, let's just keep our math straight. 3 ways of marriage: kesef, shtar, and bia. And what we're going to try to do now is say, wait, why did the Torah need 3 sources? Leave out one and learn out from the other 2. Leave out one and learn out from the other 2, etc. So the first attempt, the Gemara says, Loi lech lev rachmanu b'shtar, v'teisi, learn it out mehanoch. Learn it from Kesef and Bia. But says the Gemara, you can't. Why not? Malahanoch, when it comes to Kesef and Bia, shkin hana ason meruba. Both of those, maybe the reason why you could get married via Kesef, via Tashmish, because they give a lot of benefit. Whereas Shtar does not. Says, okay, so Lo nech rachmanu b'Bia, don't write Bia. V'teisi mehanech, I'll learn out Bia from Kesef and Shtar. Says where no, Malhanach, those Kesef and Shtar as well have a similarity. Shekein, Kinyanan, Meruba, there's many Kinyanan that can be made with Kesef and Shtar. Whereas Bia, it's not true. So Lodech Rachmana be Kesef. So attempt number 3 says, oh, Gemara, okay, so don't write that you can be married with the Kesef. V'teisi mehanach, I'll learn it out from Shtar and Bia. Says the Gemara in the first white line, Malhanach, Shkin Yeshna Bal Karcha. They can be done against their will. If you can tell me Kesef is also an entity that can work against your will, says the Gemara, it's not true. That could work Bal Karcha Ba'ama Ivriya, says you're right, but Be'ishas Miyah Layashchan, we don't ever find that Kesef is a form of marriage that could work Bal Karcha, and therefore says the Gemara, that's why we need all 3 sources, and we cannot learn even 1 from 2. We continue on, now that we have the 3 sources of Kesef, Shtar, and Bia, and the reason why we can't learn out A from B and C, B from C and A, and C from A and B, continues the Gemara on the second wide line of Hey Amid Aleph. Amar Rav Huna, Chopa Koina Mikal V'Chaymer. So far, we've learned 3 ways that you could do Kiddushin. Says Rav Huna, there's a 4th. Chopa as well as a kinyan that we learn out from a Kal V'Chaymer. Uma Kesef when it comes to money. She'enai Meichel B'Tshuma. When it comes to money, does not enable a woman to eat Truma, yet Koine, yet it works as a Kiddushin. Chopa, when it comes to an act of Chopa, Shemacheles B'Tshuma, it consummates the marriage and allows her to even eat Truma. Einoi Din, is it not logical, Shatikne, that it should act as a form of Kiddushin? So says Rav Huna of Bia Kal V'Chaymer, I'll learn out that there's a 4th way of effecting Kiddushin. Excuse me, most notably, Chuppah. Ask the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom, 1 second. V'kesef einai meichel? Is that what you just said true? Is it true that a kesef does not enable the woman to eat truma? V'amar ula ba'ula taught us the Torah. Mid-Araisa on a biblical level. Arusa bas Yisrael oicheles b'truma. And Arusa bas Yisrael could indeed eat truma. Why? Shenemar says the pasuk 3 lines to the bottom. V'koyin kigne nefesh kinyin kasboy. Why kinyin kasbo? And this is an acquisition of money. So really, Mid-Araisa, Kiddushin via Kesef does enable a woman to eat truma. But in practicality, she cannot. Why not? 2 lines from the bottom. So why lemaisa do we say that she does not eat to truma when the marriage is done via kesef? You know why? Because we're afraid that they might actually give her to drink while she's still in her father's household. And therefore what? She's allowed to drink. She did Kiddushin. She could drink, but if she takes the food home, you know we're worried about. V'tishkanu on the last line, lachiula chayisa. So it's all a din midirabanan. So ask the Gemara, you just told me that the whole Kal V'Chaymer of Avuna was that Kesef does not allow her to eat Truma. Chuppah does yes allow her. So if Kesef could do Kiddushin, Chuppah could certainly. Says the Gemara, it's not a good equation because really Kesef does allow her to eat Truma. It's only a din dirabanan, not. Says the Gemara, okay, I'll tell you the Kal V'Chaymer. Elapare chachi. Explain it as follows. Uma Kesef she'inoi goymer. Koine. Kesef is not a complete acquisition. Kesef does not effect nisuin. Yet koine, yet it could do Kiddushin. Chuppah, as we turn over to him, when it comes to Chuppah, she'goymeres, Chuppah indeed has the ability to effect a nisuin. Certainly it shall allow Kiddushin to take effect. If chuppah is so powerful, it can even do nesuin, certainly it should be able to do kiddushin. Says the Gemara, nice kavachaymer, but no good. Hey, Amid Bey's top line. Umalik kesef. Kesef is different. Shkein by the bike the isha is meiser sheni. Kesef could be utilized to redeem hektish meiser sheni, whereas chuppah cannot. Says the Gemara, no, biyat chiach. Tashmish will prove to you that what Tashmish cannot redeem it, yet it affects kiddushin. Says the Gemara, no, malabi ashkein kani be avama. Be has its own unique advantage because it works by avama. Says the Gemara, kesef yochiach. So now we have a classical that when we have two dinim, that each one could teach us the din that we're looking for about chuppah, kesef, biyah. Each one has a kasha, but the kasha on each is answered by the other. What do we say? 4 lines down. V'chazer azdin lo rizeh krizeh lo rizeh krizeh. Neither one is absolute, but for the two of them in tandem, ha'atzad ha'shaveh shabahem. Biyah and kesef have a common denominator that what? She'koinin bi'alma v'koinin kan. So too, afani avi chuppah. So too, I'll bring chuppah she'koinin ba'alma that generally works as a kinyan v'koinin kan, and therefore will work over here. So at the end of the day, Rav Huna is learning out what's his source that chuppah affects kiddushin hatzad shaveh from biyah and kesef. But ask the Gemara, not so fast. Malatzad shaveh, the two items that you're learning out from, shekein hana asan meruba, tashmish, kesef, money, marital intimacy gives a lot of benefit, whereas chuppah does not. Says the Gemara, shtar techiach. Shtar teaches you because shtar doesn't get benefit. Ma'ale shtar, what do you mean? Shtar itself has its unique advantage. Kein moitzi bas Yisrael, because the shtar has the ability to divorce a bas Yisrael. Kesef ubiach techiach. So kesef be approved because they cannot act as divorce. Chazer adin. So now after we insert into shtar as well, we can now have a concluding chazer adin lo rizeh krizeh v'lo rizeh krizeh sadashavah shebehen she'koinin ba'alma they're kinyan elsewhere v'koinin kan. Afani says Rav Huna I as well will bring chuppah she'koinin ba'alma v'koinin kan. So Rav Huna now is learning out from all three of them, kesef, shtar, and biyah in tandem, all in unison, via their bottom line, via their tzad shaveh that they all are kinyan elsewhere and are kinyan here of kiddushin. Rav Huna says we can learn out that chuppah should be the same. Ask the Gemara. 1 second. About 12 lines down. First line is ma. But the tzad shaveh, kesef, shtar, and biyah is unique. Shekein yeshtan bal karcha kol be done bal karcha. V'Rav Huna kesef, and according to Rav Huna, kesef miyah bishas lo ashchan bal karcha. According to Rav Huna, no. Because kesef, you cannot force a woman to accept with regard to marriage, and therefore that's how Rav Huna is able to learn out chuppah from kesef, shtar, and biyah, and the fact that shtar and biyah kivdam bal karcha is not a kasha. So now we have Ha'isha niknis with how many drachim? 3 in the Mishnah, kesef, shtar, and biyah, and a 4th according to Rav Huna, the din of chuppah. Amar Rava asks Rava, shtei tshuvais badavar, I have 2 problems. Chada, the Mishnah, shalosh tanan, it says only 3 ways. V'dal loy tanan, not 4. Void, klom chuppah gemeres, ela idei kiddushin. What do you mean? The only reason why chuppah is goymer, the only reason why chuppah acts as nisui, because you already did kiddushin prior. Is it possible to learn out a chuppah without kiddushin when it itself is going to be the kiddushin? So asks Rava, he has a 2-fold problem. Number 1 is in the reading of the Mishnah. It says 3 and not 4. Number 2, it's fundamental. The only reason why chuppah is nigmar, is koin as nisuin, is after kiddushin. Amar le Abaye, explains Abaye, Dikamer, your kasha number 1, that what? Gimel tanan v'loy v'daloy tanan. That's not a problem. Tana milsa the chsiva be'edir katani. That which was explicit, that which you learn out from sukkim, kesef, shtar, and biyah. That katani, the Mishnah list in milsa the chsiva be'edir like katani. But chuppah, Rav Huna's din, which is being learned from the other three, which is being learned from the tzad shaveh, that is not listed in the Mishnah. Utka'amrit, but your other kasha, that what? Klum chuppah gameres l'idei kiddushin. The chuppah only works after there was an original kiddushin. Rav Huna nami achikamer. This is what Rav Huna meant. Explains Abaya. Uma kesef sheina goimer acher kesef koine. Kesef after kesef. Kesef cannot work as nisuin after worked as kiddushin. Yet chuppah shegomeres acher kesef. Chuppah which does work after kesef. Din shetikne. Certainly it should work to start. And that is the explanation of Shitas of Rav Huna, that it's not Gimel Derachim that are kind of the Mishnah, but rather Dalet Derachim. The numbers are not an issue, nor is the explanation. Tanu Rabbanan, and we continue approximately 10 lines from the Y lines, the two dots. Continues the Gemara, Keitzad Ba'Kesef. How do you perform Kiddushin via money? Nasan la kesef v'yishava kesef, you give her money or that which is worth money. V'amar la, and you say to her, you are married to me, you have done eris and into your to meet a wife. That is how you perform Kiddushin, eris, and that is the first stage of the marriage. Aval, but that's all when it goes from a husband to wife. Aval, on the flip side, he shenaslav, she gives to him. V'amra, and she says, V'amra hi arini mikudeshes l'cha. I am married to you, arini mures l'cha. I betrothed to you, arini l'cha into I am to you, to a wife. Einoi mikudeshes. So explains the Gemara that when it comes to doing Kiddushin via kesef, it's a one-way street. It has to go husband to wife, and it cannot go the opposite. Ask the Gemara with this. We're going to conclude Maskiv Papa. Ask her Papa. Time adinasanu v'amarhu. Sounds like in the Mishnah, the only reason why it works because he gave her the money and he said, but if he gave the money and she said, then ain't a mikudeshes. But Ema Sefer, the Sefer sounds the opposite. What does the Sefer say? If she gives to him Amrahi and she says Lavi Kiddushin, it sounds like what? Time the reason why it does not work because she said and did both. But if he gave Amri and she said Avi Kiddushin, so we have the classical steer and the Yukin steer and implications in the Mishnah. Answers the Gemara. Reisha, Dafka, the Reisha is specific. The Reisha that said he has to say, and he has to give, but if he says and she gives, it would not work. That is Miduyak. Seifa, when it said that she gave and she said it does not work, the Inaz was only written as a continuation of the Reisha. Says the Gemara, Vatani Seifa Milsa the Sasa the Reisha, but it's a stira. Elahachi Kambar explains the Gemara. No, Sanu, if he gave Amru and he said, Pshita Davik Dush, that works. No, Sanu, if he gave Amri and she says, if he gave and she said, we make it tantamount as if she gave and she said, V'amari and Lavi Kiddushin. Ibay Sema final teretz Nasanu V'amar Hu. If he gave and he said Mikudeshes. Naslehi, if she gave Naslehi V'amrahi Eidem Mikudeshes. Nasanhu V'amrahi. What do we do with that middle case? Sveikahi, and therefore v'chayshina midrabanan. So two different ways of explaining what happens if he gives the money and she says it. Either it's not a Kiddushin at all, or we say it's Kiddushin midrabanan, it's a suffix, and we have to be chayshin midrabanan, which pashtus would mean he would have to give her a get. Let's just look at that Rashi as we call it a day. Rashi says v'chayshina midrabanan, that what? If someone else comes and marries her, she would need a get from both of them. Because why? Maybe the first one's not a Kedusha, the second one works. Maybe the first one is a Kedusha, not the second one. That's the Iba Yisrael, the second way of learning. Pick it up from Shmuel, Mirza Hashem, in the next Shir.